SOS is the commonly used description for the International Morse Code distress signal. This distress signal was first adopted by the German government in radio regulations effective April 1, 1905, and became the worldwide standard under the Second International Radiotelegraphic Convention, which was signed on November 3, 1906 and became effective on July 1, 1908. SOS remained the maritime radio distress signal until 1999, when it was replaced by the Global Maritime Distress Safety System. SOS is still recognized as a visual distress signal. The SOS distress signal is a continuous sequence of 3 dits, 3 dars, and 3 dits, all run together without letter spacing. In International Morse Code, 3 dits form the letter S, and 3 dars make the letter O, so SOS became an easy way to remember the order of the dits and dars. In modern terminology, SOS is a Morse procedural signal, or prosign, and the formal way to write it is with a bar above the letters, SOS. In popular usage, SOS became associated with such phrases as save our ship, save our souls, and send out succor. These may be regarded as mnemonics, but SOS does not actually stand for anything and is not an abbreviation, acronym or initialism. In fact, SOS is only one of several ways that the combination could have been written. VTB, for example, would produce exactly the same sound, but SOS was chosen to describe this combination. SOS is the only 9-element signal in Morse code, making it more easily recognizable, as no other symbol uses more than 8 elements. Formalization. The use of the SOS signal was first introduced in Germany as part of a set of national radio regulations, effective April 1, 1905. These regulations introduced 3 new Morse code sequences, including the SOS distress signal. In 1906, at the Second International Radiotelegraphic Convention in Berlin, an extensive collection of service regulations was developed to supplement the main agreement, which was signed on November 3, 1906, becoming effective on July 1, 1908. Article 16 of the regulations adopted German is Notzeichen as the international standard, reading, ships in distress shall use the following signal, AAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA distress call appears to have been either the Cunard liner Slavonia on June 10, 1909, according to notable achievements of wireless in the September 1910 modern electrics, or the steamer SS Arapaho on August 11, 1909. The signal of the Arapaho was received by the United Wireless Telegraph Company station at Hatteras, North Carolina, and forwarded to the steamer company's offices. However, there was some resistance among the Marconi operators to the adoption of the new signal, and, as late as the April 1912 sinking of the USS Titanic, the ship's Marconi operators intermixed CQD and SOS distress calls. However, in the interests of consistency and water safety, the use of CQD appears to have died out after this point. In both the April 1, 1905 German law, and the 1906 international regulations, the distress signal was specified as a continuous Morse code sequence of 3 dits, with no mention of any alphabetic equivalents. However, in International Morse, 3 dits comprise the letter S, and 3 dars the letter O. It therefore soon became common to refer to the distress signal as SOS. An early report on the International Radiotelegraphic Convention in the January 12, 1907 Electrical World stated that vessels in distress use the special signal, SOS, repeated at short intervals. In contrast to CQD, which was sent as 3 separate letters with spaces between each letter, the SOS distress call has always been transmitted as a continuous sequence of dits and dars, and not as individual letters. There was no problem as long as operators were aware that SOS was technically just a convenient way for remembering the proper sequence of the distress signal's total of 9 dits and dars. In later years, the number of special Morse symbols increased. In order to designate the proper sequence of dits and dars for a long special symbol, the standard practice is to list alphabetic characters which contain the same dits and dars in the same order, with a bar atop the character sequence to indicate that there should not be any internal spaces in the transmission. Thus, under the modern notation, the distress signal becomes SOS. It has also sometimes been used as a visual distress signal, consisting of 3 short, 3 long, and 3 more short flashes of light, such as from a survival mirror, or with SOS spelled out in individual letters. The fact that SOS can be read right side up as well as upside down became important for visual recognition if viewed from above. Later developments, additional warning and distress signals followed the introduction of SOS. On January 20, 1914, the London International Convention on Safety of Life at Sea adopted the Morse code signal TTT, 3-letter TS spaced correctly as 3 letters so as not to be confused with the letter O, as the safety signal, used for messages to ships involving safety of navigation and being of an urgent character. With the development of audio radio transmitters, there was a need for a spoken distress phrase, and Mayday was adopted by the 1927 International Radio Convention as the equivalent of SOS. For TTT, the equivalent audio signal is ZAR copyright Curator copyright for navigational safety. It is interesting to note that Mayday actually originated as the French maids and that there is a third, lesser distress call, PAN, spelled pan in English. French was the international language at the time that these were formalized. During the Second World War, additional codes were employed to include immediate details about attacks by enemy vessels, especially in the Battle of the Atlantic. The signal SSS signaled attacked by submarines, whilst RRR warned of an attack by a surface raider, QQQ warned of an unknown raider, and AAA indicated an attack by aircraft. They were usually sent in conjunction with the SOS distress code. All of these codes later switched from 3 repeats of the letter to 4 repeats. None of these signals were used on their own. Sending SOS as well as other warning signals used similar procedures for effectiveness. These were always followed correctly. Here is an example of an SOS signal. The portions in parentheses are an explanation only. SOS 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 to GBTT 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 Queen Elizabeth to PSN 49.06.30 North, 04.30.20 West. Ship on fire, crew abandoning ship ARK. Ships and coastal stations would normally have required quiet times twice an hour to listen for priority signals. However, many merchant vessels carried only 1 or 2 radio operators, in which case the SOS may not be heard by operators off duty. Eventually equipment was invented to summon off-duty operators by ringing an alarm in the operator's berth. This was triggered by the operator of the ship in distress transmitting 12 long dashes of 4 seconds duration each. These were sent prior to the SOS, hopefully ringing the automatic alarm in ships so equipped. If possible, a short delay was given before transmission of the SOS proper. This was to give those off-watch operators time to get to their radio office. Famous SOS calls: HMHS Britannic, RMSA Lusitania, RMSA Titanic, Sir Andrea Doria. See also Morse code, 500 kHz, 2182 kHz, distress signal, GMDSS, Mayday, PAN, ZAR copyright Curator copyright, vessel emergency codes, references. Further reading, The Wireless Telegraph Conference. The Electrician, 157 euro 160, 214. November 27, 1903. Final Protocol, First International Radiotelegraphic Conference, Berlin, 1903. Regelung der Funktelegrafie im Deutschen Reich. Elektrotechnische Zeitschrift, 413 euro 414. April 27, 1905. German Regulations for the Control of Spark Telegraphy. The Electrician, 94 euro 95. May 5, 1905. Roberson, Samuel. Manual of Wireless Telegraphy for the Use of Naval Electricians. 1906 International Wireless Telegraph Convention, U.S. Government Printing Office. The International Radiotelegraphic Convention. Electrical World, 83 euro 84. January 12, 1907. S5S Rivals CQD for Wireless Honors, Popular Mechanics, February, 1910, page 156. Notable achievements of wireless, modern electrics, September, 1910, page 315. Collins, Francis A., Some Stirring Wireless Rescues, from the Wireless Man, 1912, pages 104–141. Turnbull, G. E., Distress Signaling, The Yearbook of Wireless Telegraphy and Telephony, 1913, pages 318–322. Dilks, John H. 3, YSOS. In OSS, June, 2007, pages 88–89.